guys, today we're going to talk about how to connect with your audience. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 ways that you can connect with your audience, including the number 1 foolproof way to connect. I practice that, foolproof. It's kind of a hard word to say. Okay, so anyways, guys, because whenever you're up on stage, it's all about connection. It's all about connection over perfection. I remember going to an event not too long ago where the keynote speaker was perfection. Okay, she was doing all the acrobatics. She was hitting all the notes. You knew she could practice that thing 1,000 times, and she really knew what she was doing. I was sitting there with my notebook, taking notes. I was like, wow, she is fantastic. She's doing this skill and this skill and this skill and this skill. And just to see how she put them all together was a masterpiece. And it was amazing. And she connected with so many people. But did you know the speaker that I connected with the most at that conference did none of those things? He actually, in the speaking space, you could tell that he didn't go to speaker school. He didn't have all the skills in place. He didn't follow any specific outline. He didn't practice his speech a million times. But what he did do well was connect with the audience. So what's the difference between someone who connects with the audience and someone who doesn't? What are some key things that you can do right now to really make them feel something in a way that will make them remember you and want to follow you and want to buy something from you? Wouldn't that be amazing? So in this video, let's dive in. The number 1 thing, speaking to that person who I saw from stage, the number 1 thing that really connected me to him was his energy. It was his being. The kind of person that he was magnetic and gravitating. It made me just want to be like him. You could tell that he was successful. He had the accolades. They didn't tell us all of his numbers or anything like that, but you could tell he was successful in his business and he'd been doing it for a long time. But even more than the success was that the way that he talked to people and about people. And he was kind of, an edgy character at the same time, but you could tell from the way he spoke that he really genuinely cared about people. And that being one of my biggest values, I really connected with him on a deep level because I could tell that he was successful because he cared, and that left a lasting impression. But it's you being you. It's you being you. It's you being you in alignment with your values and showing people that you are your values, that you are someone that cares, that you are someone that connects over perfection, right? Whatever it is that you're saying with, it's authentic and it's in alignment with who you are, and you being who you are at the best, most clear level to the audience is the thing that's going to make them feel something and going to connect with you. So that's thing number 1. Thing number 2, and don't overstep that one, okay? I wish we could talk for hours on that one actually, and maybe I will make another video on that, but it really is essential because even, again, like I said, even if you have all the acrobatics and you got all the skills and you got the framework in place, if you don't have that energy of grounded and connection with your audience, if you're not authentic and real with them, then they are going to leave feeling like, wow, that was such a good talk, right? Not the, wow, that really changed my life kind of response to that. Okay, so let's go on to thing number 2. Thing number 2 is that you are going to talk about the audience's favorite thing to talk about, okay? That's how you really connect with your audience, is to talk about things that they care about. And I want to ask you, what is the number 1 thing that your audience cares about the very most? Okay. If you can pause, I could pause the video and just comment down below. What is that number 1 thing? You want to ask yourself this. What is the number 1 thing that my audience cares the most about? And I don't care, regardless of what niche you are in, the number 1 thing that your audience cares about is themselves. Right? They care about number 1. we all want to serve. We all want to give impact. We all want to help other people. But the number 1 thing that really each one of us needs is to help ourselves first. Let's be honest. Okay. So whenever they're listening to you, if they can feel that you are talking to them, then you are going to connect with them the most. All right. So how do you do that exactly? How do you draw them into the story? I'm always telling my students, hey, you want to draw them in, you want to make your story their story. Because how many of you have been to an event and people are droning on and on and on about their story, and maybe it was a really cool story and they had some cool things happening in their lives, but it's just going on and on about them, and your brain starts to zone out after a while because I don't really care about you. I'm sorry, they don't care about you. I don't care about you. They don't care about you unless it means something to me, right? Unless you care about me, unless you understand me, unless you're talking to me, I don't necessarily care about what you're saying. Okay? The honest, hard truth is right there. Okay, so how do you let them know that you care about them? Well, number one is you're going to care about them. Number two is you're going to draw them into the story. How do you do that? You do that by talking about them, right? So instead of saying, hey, I used to be an overeater and I struggled for a long time, and there were many nights where I would just sit on the floor and I would stuff my face to death, and by the end of the night I was promising myself that I would never do that again. Okay? Or I can say, hey, I used to be an overeater, and do you know how it feels like hell? Because there are so many moments whenever you're sitting on the kitchen floor and you've eaten yourself to the max for the 100th time in a row, and every single day whenever you're sitting there you feel like a piece of trash because you promised yourself yesterday that you weren't going to do it today, and then you have the gall to promise yourself again today that you're not going to do it again. Today's going to be different. Now's going to be different. And it pulls you down because you just feel like a failure, right? Because you can't keep your promises to yourself no matter how hard you try, because you know that tomorrow you're going to be sitting in that same spot as you are today, just like you were yesterday. Okay, so so do you see the difference with that? I brought you into that story and I was like, wow, this is what it feels like. This is how your emotions are. This is what's happening. These are the thoughts that are going on in your head, right? Like I drew you into my story and I was sitting there on that kitchen floor with you, having those thoughts that we have 1,000 times, right? And if you are someone that struggled with addiction, then you know what those thoughts are. And during our events too, I would get even more real and even more down there and even more grounded and visual with them, because I want them to know that I know exactly where they're at right now, right? And whenever you show your people that you know where they are and that you've been where they are and that you made your way out, that's when they love you. That's when they trust you. And it's because you're talking about them. Okay, so that's thing number 2. Thing number 3 that I just forgot. I was going to share 3 things. What were they? Thing number 1, thing number 2, thing number 3 was, this is what happens whenever you're connecting and not perfecting and you don't write the thing down. Thing number 3, connecting with your audience. Well, 2 things today then, my friends. 2 things. I can't think of the other one. So this is going to be good. I'm going to share that other one another day. So cliffhanger, in the next video, I'll share the next thing, the last thing on how to connect with your audience in a way that is not all about perfection, but it's about connection. It's going to rock their socks up. It's going to make them remember you. Don't miss it. Have a great one. And remember, you have a message that matters. Go take it to millions.